Welcome back to the Sports News Analysis YouTube channel. My name is Mike. I'm continuing my Week 13 NFL previews and analysis. This video is for the Monday Night Football game between the New Orleans Saints and the Seattle Seahawks. Certainly your marquee matchup of Week 13. The Seahawks coming off their bye with a record of 10-1, and New Orleans comes in with a record of 9-2. These two teams have been the best two teams in the NFC this year, and this could have a very big bearing in this game on the number one seed in the NFC. And you have the Seahawks coming in with a record of 10-1. They get a little healthier this week. They get their two tackles back, right tackle Brino Giacomini and left tackle Russell Okung, which would certainly help a running game that has been resurged here in the last month or so. Remember, there were times where the Seahawks were playing without 3 of their 5 starters on the offensive line. But they do lose Brandon Browner and Walter Thurmond, who both will be suspended for violation of the league's substance abuse policy. They've brought in the likes of Antoine Winfield, Marcus Trufant, Parrish Cox to maybe fill that void that Browner's going to leave. But, we'll see this week how that affects them against the Saints, obviously, where their strength is passing the ball. And, the Seattle strength is defending the pass. But you have to remember, while that's a noted strength, I think they have the best secondary in the league, even if Browner isn't there. But their pass rushers are getting healthier. They have a stable of pass rushers that I think is going to be a big factor in this game against Breeze. From a points scored perspective, two stats you'd be surprised these two teams are similar in. One is points scored. These two teams are almost dead even in offensive points scored per game. You wouldn't think that. You would think the Saints would be higher. And scoring defense. I mean, you would think Seattle would be far and away ahead of the Saints in this department. Both these teams are in the top 5 in scoring defense. So, a lot of, strength versus strength, but a lot of similarities between these teams. The one thing I see as a potential pitfall for the Saints is the fact that they do allow 4.8 yards per rush. And a lot of their rush defense woes are masked by the fact that usually Drew Brees and company get out to a big lead or some kind of lead early, and teams are forced to abandon the run. But if you look at games where teams are able to stick with the run, I look at the Jets game from a couple weeks back. The Jets were able to stick with the run and pull off a big upset and get really physical with the Saints, something I think Seattle's going to try to do, especially with the return of their starting offensive line in this one. So look for that to be a big deal. How big of a deal is Brandon Browner being out? He did miss some time last year. It didn't really hurt them too much last year. We'll see how it affects them this year. You have those physical safeties and the linebackers of Seattle matching up against Jimmy Graham. Well, I think guys like Jimmy Graham and Gronkowski, there is no perfect matchup to defend them. I think you get as close as it gets here with the Seattle safeties and maybe the Seattle linebackers thrown in there. But you're going to have to put a safety or a big corner on Jimmy Graham. So the matchups in this game, who can Bobby Wagner hang with Darren Sproles coming out of the backfield? Marshawn Lynch leads the league in broken tackles. How does Rob Ryan's defense handle the beast that is Marshawn Lynch? And look, still a big game for Russell Wilson, right? I know he's at home, which is a serious advantage, especially given the dynamic home field advantage that the Seahawks have. They've won 13 straight games at home there at CenturyLink Field. So, how does Russell Wilson come out and play? I think he responds mature, doesn't try to do too much, just like he's done in every other game he's played in his professional career. Can the Saints get anything going on the ground? Can they protect Breeze? And can they exploit the absence of Brandon Browner? And how does that offense communicate in the noise up in Seattle? The Saints offense, plays much better at home. Their team plays much better at home, mostly because their offense, most notably, relies on a high level of communication and flow and rhythm. And it's harder to get that on the road in general, but especially up in Seattle in that environment they're going into here. So I think this is going to be a great game. I think whichever of these two teams get home field advantage in the NFC playoffs is going to have a serious advantage over everyone else in the conference. I think in this particular game, with the healthy offensive line and with what I think is going to be just a slowing down a little bit of that Saints offense due to the noise and due to the good defense on Seattle's part, I like Seattle -6, all right, to beat the Saints here. Guys, let me know what you think. Hit me up in the YouTube comments. Hit me up on Twitter at @SNewsAnalysis. Be sure to subscribe to my channel. I preview and recap every game every week, and I'm always talking the news of the day in the NFL. So be sure to subscribe. Thanks for listening. Have a great night.